Hello there, it's Joseph, and welcome back to episode 10 of Unlocking the Tech Tree in my Colonizing Kerbin series. And we are going back to that Duna mission that we started back in episode 8 in the hopes that maybe today we might actually complete Unlocking the Tech Tree in this science mode. So we are pretty close to getting to Duna at this point in the mission, and we're going to have Bersby get out. She's going to do some additional science. I believe we may be high above Duna at this point. Yes, we are, and now we're going to time warp down to where we're pretty close to Periapsis above Duna. Looks like about 82 kilometers above Duna, and we're going to circularize our orbit and do some science close to Duna. And we brought along the Science Junior, Atmosphere, Barometer, pretty much all the science units that are available to us so far in the game, which should be all of them, because we are pretty close to being done. We just have 2 things left, as you remember from last episode. So here's our lander that we're going to use to land on Duna. And what you're seeing on screen right now was my first attempt to land, and as you can see, things are not going great. Bit of a glitch here on landing, so I tried to correct this and ended up making it worse. But this was not the only time I had problems with landing. I ended up doing this about 3 or 4 times before I finally got it to not glitch on me whenever I landed. One time I had a nice soft landing. I probably hit the ground about 1 to 2 meters per second, which is pretty ideal, and it immediately just bounced over. I even tried fidgeting with my landing gears suspension system, and it just didn't seem to matter. I'm not really sure. It could be because this craft is a bit top heavy. That might be what was causing the problems. So in case you may have missed it, I had Bersby jump out and run the science right before we hit the atmosphere, and then I had her do it again as soon as we went into the atmosphere to try and collect as many science points and different zones as I could. The magnetometer does not work in atmosphere, so that is useless to us at this point. The seismometer is not useful until we hit the ground, so we haven't been able to use that. But that atmosphere reader over there on the left, that big gray-blue piece, I used that for the first time high up, and then I am using that as we're coming down. So I had Bersby jump out before we landed to run some science while we're at a safe speed touching down. Now, Duna's atmosphere is a lot thinner than Kerbin's, so as you can see, I made use of a lot of parachutes and the air brakes in order to get us down safely, but then had to light the engine just a little bit when coming down to the surface. It doesn't seem to matter how many parachutes you have or air brakes you have, you just can't seem to slow down enough to safely land on Duna. So if you end up trying to make a Duna lander yourself, make sure you take note of that. Alright, so we are now safely on the surface with Bersby, and she is planting the flag in the Western Canyon. And this is our first landing on Duna, and eventually we're going to be coming back to establish permanent residence, but for now, we're down on the surface with the first married couple on Duna. They had discussed possibly getting married on the surface of Duna with Jebediah officiating in orbit. However, you may have recalled there was a little bit of drama when this crew was on Minmus. So to avoid that, Bersby and Bill decided to elope, I think. Possibly. I'm just checking my notes here. Yeah, it looks like they eloped. Didn't want any more drama going on here. Jeb's just gonna have to accept this. By the way, there's a little glitch you can see up here. So when I launched this mission, I was on 1.10, and then when I landed this mission, I was on 1.11. So it's got the new features with the cargo storage units and everything. And for some reason, when I was transferring the parachutes for Bill back to one of the cargo holds, that offset tool was showing up above, and in fact it's off camera right now when I was taking that screenshot, and you could see it over in the top right. So I went back to a quick save and it disappeared, so it ended up not being a problem. So we've landed and put down our deployable science. And because Bill is now at about level 3 or 4, we only needed about 2 solar panel units. And now he's jumping out and resetting all these parachutes. The parachutes are not actually going to be used again, but I did it to make sure our aerodynamic profile stayed the best as possible. That little nose cone you see up there is on a docking port, and that's going to detach when we get higher up closer to orbit. And that's just to make sure that we are not creating any more drag than necessary to get into orbit. This lander's got plenty of delta V to get us into orbit and circularize and rendezvous with the mothership. But I'm trying to conserve my delta V. And as you can see, I noticed my fuel lines were messed up on this system. The fuel lines should be sending fuel the opposite direction. Luckily, there was a workaround. I just drained fuel from the side tanks back into the center tank. And then you're going to see me click the green arrows up here on the center fuel tank to make sure that it does not use any fuel from the tank while the engine is burning. So essentially it's doing the same thing. It's draining from the side tanks instead of the center tank, so that when I eventually jettison these side tanks, the center tank is full. But I have to make sure to turn that tank back on as soon as I jettison those fuel tanks, or otherwise the engine won't light. So Bersby's running off and finding some blueberries, which the Perseverance rover just landed recently. So if you've done any research on Mars missions, you'll kind of understand where the blueberries reference comes from. And as she's running back, I'm going to finish touching up what I was saying about aerodynamics. So I'm trying to save as much delta V as I can, because the plan was one of two things. Either go to another biome on Duna, so hit 2 biomes of Duna, or go to Ike. And it's been a while since I had initially, launched this mission. It was probably about a month or 2 of real time in the real world between when I launched the mission and when I landed. So I kind of had forgotten what I'd originally planned, but it looks like I decided to go to Ike. And the only reason I know that is because when I looked at, I had 2 sets of deployable science and the 2 cargo tanks. And I noticed that the second batch had I think the device is called the ionographer, and that only works in no atmosphere. So obviously I decided to go to Ike. So as we're going up the atmosphere, I just did some additional science there. You see me jettisoning that cone that gave us a better aerodynamic profile. I'm just running some more of these science units just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And I think I was over a different biome as well. So now just setting a rendezvous with the mothership. And when we get to the mothership, you'll notice that the upper stage tank, that big tank that got us on a Duna trajectory, is still attached to the whole thing. So that's the big orange tank you're going to see when we eventually get back on the sunny side of Duna. That should be a song. The sunny side of Duna. See you on the sunny side of Duna. Yeah, I think I'll write that for an upcoming episode. That'd be kind of fun. Anyway, we're going to make use of that. That is going to help us get to Ike. And basically, I'm not going to use any fuel on the lander until we get to Ike. Now, a little spoiler is in order here. When you see me landing on Ike in a few seconds, when you see the lander landing on Ike, and if you're someone who pays close attention in KSP videos to YouTubers who have videos and their fuel usage and everything, there is actually not enough fuel in the lander when you see it landing to actually get back off of Kerbin. And I actually will show that in just a second. But as you can see, I'm moving fuel from that upper stage into the lander so that it has plenty of fuel to do its landing maneuver and to get off the surface of Ike. The mothership is using a nuclear engine, so it has plenty of delta V to help lower the periapsis for landing. But as you can see, I used the upper stage. I saved some fuel. So what you're not going to see me do is I actually do this landing twice. The second landing is not shown because I actually forgot to hit record on the video when I was doing the second landing. So I had to show the first landing. So when I take off from Ike in a second to re-rendezvous with the mothership, that's the second landing, and I had enough fuel for that. So anyway, I decided to move all the fuel from the upper stage into the lander and use the nuclear engines the nuclear engine on the mothership to get this whole thing to Ike. And there was plenty of Delta V to do that and get back to Kerbin, because the lander is going to, this is its last part of the mission. It's going to be jettisoned. As you can see the numbers here, so the side fuel tanks, I have to keep them on. You notice they ran out of fuel, but I have to keep them on because that's where the landing legs are. And that's what contributed, as you can see on here, losing a lot of fuel in the center tank. I didn't have that problem on the second landing. There was still just a small amount of fuel left in the side tanks on the second landing, and I was able to have plenty of Delta V to get back into orbit. So hopefully that explanation of what is going on is pretty clear. So we have another historic landing. Bill decided to be the first to step on Ike, since his wife Bersby was the first to step on Duna. So he planted the flag to commemorate that special occasion, and now we're gonna deploy some more science again. There's that ionographer device thing I was talking about that can only be used on a celestial body that doesn't have atmosphere, and that's kind of what told me that I had originally planned to do one landing on Duna and one landing on Ike. So things worked out on this mission okay. My planning worked out fine, but I almost messed it up with the fuel drainage into the lander. But nice little screenshot there of them looking off into the sunset, sunrise, whichever it is, on the beautiful gray planet of Ike. So yeah, just jettison those fuel tanks, and then we're off. And as you can see, I ran out of fuel, so that was me showing you my initial attempt to get off of Ike, and I didn't have enough fuel. This, at this point, is the second attempt. As you can see, I got about a half a tank of fuel, which is plenty. And that's when I finally remembered, oh, I need to hit record. And I had thought about, maybe I should go back and re-record it. And then I was like, you know what? I'll just explain it in post. I didn't really feel like doing the whole landing process again. And, I would have had to gone all the way back, when I was draining fuel back at Duna. So it was a lot to have redone. So I decided to do it this way and explain it to you guys. So now we're just time warping forward and looking for an encounter to return the Kerbin. And here's just a screenshot of a website I use. I'm going to link that in the description. This is a very helpful transfer window calculator to help you figure out what angle you need to be at for wherever you're coming from and wherever you're going. In this case, I'm going from Duna back to Kerbin. And while I'm going to pause on that explanation real quick, and here's the lander deorbiting and going and crashing back down on Ike to get us some more science from the seismometer. But we have we're just going to stay in Ike orbit. So since we're already, that puts us at a decent clip above Duna. So not much point in, lowering our orbit to go back to Duna to get out of there. I actually time warped to a point where Ike was at a point where I could just fire prograde from Ike, and it would put me on a retrograde trajectory back to Kerbin. And there's a nice little Duna rise above Ike. So yeah, that website I was talking about, very cool website for transfer window calculations. You set your orbit height in there, so tell it what planet you're going from and what planet you're going to, and it'll show you kind of what angle you need to set your burn at and what angle the planet should be at in terms of orbit around the sun. And it's just a nice, helpful little thing that I use. Alrighty, so we are coming back to Kerbin at this point. So like I said, the nuclear engine had plenty of Delta V. And so what we're just doing here is just got enough of a burn to capture, because the nuclear engine has a very low thrust to weight ratio. On screen right now, this is being fast forwarded at a much higher rate than I normally do. Normally this is 4 times speed, what you see on screen. This is at about 10 times speed. That's just how much it just takes a ridiculous amount of time to do these burns before we eventually get down to a nice low orbit set around 75. And the reason I did it so low is I actually wanted to try and see if I could land the capsule back at the KSC. I get kind of close. I get on the same continent, and I was trying to show some little fireworks here, just kind of as a celebration, because we should have enough science points to unlock the rest of the tech tree with a bunch of extra. So yeah, 10 episodes to get us done with the tech tree. I'm not quite sure how many missions we did. I think we did about 2 or 3 Minmus missions, about 3 or 4 Mun missions. So not too bad. So there's actually some speedrunners out there who can do all this in under an hour. That's not me. I like to do it in a more realistic way and have the Kerbal Experience on and things like that. So yeah, here we go. Our last 2 things on the tech tree, large probes and experimental science. And we're done. Well, thank you all for watching this series so far. When we come back, we're going to begin establishing our permanent stations and bases at Kerbin, Mun, Minmus, Duna, Laythe, in our attempts to colonize the Kerbin system. See you next time.